Close voice triads are an extremely valuable tool for guitar players. They're the smallest unit where you can still define major or minor chords, just 3 notes. So they become very, very useful and much more flexible than bigger, sort of heavier bar chords or open chords. But guitarists, when they're getting used to triads or sort of getting them under their fingers, you need some context by which to attach the triads to in order to figure out their sort of best use and how you can start to leverage them right away. Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. Today you're going to learn a triad application over a 1-4-5 progression in the key of A. I chose the 1-4-5 progression because it's sort of ubiquitous. You know, you can find it in bluegrass music, metal, rock, country, fusion, like it's everywhere. It's a very, very stable musical cadence, and as such it provides a great scaffolding to attach new information to. If you're just thinking about the same chord progression and it's a very sort of constrained set of chords, you can let that go on autopilot and then use the rest of your brain to sort of apply new information. It's very useful. So a little while ago I was watching YouTube and I saw this clip of Eddie Van Halen doing a solo at a live show, and he started with this beautiful chord progression that went like this. It's just really, really pretty. That same mechanic happens to be in the song Crazy Train, Randy Rhoads. Same triadic shapes. It's in a song played by Vernon Reid for Living Colour called Solace of You. That song is actually in the key of D, but I'm playing it in A just to show you that, you know, this triadic mechanism is used by guitar players all over the place. It's also ubiquitous. So that kind of mechanism really gives you great capability and mobility on the guitar. So I'm going to expand on that a little bit and show you a way to use triads to get through this 1-4-5 progression in a really unique way using voice leading and a few other techniques. Okay, so let's get into it. Today we're going to be using the progression A, D, E, D, A. That's a 1-4-5, 4-1 in the key of A. 1-4-5-4-1. And we're going to be using triads, and you know, there are triads all over the neck. Like these are all A chords, for example. So this progression can live all over the place. We're going to strip some of that away and just look at this string set. The D, G, and B string. Just we're going to put triads on that set of strings just so we can remove the sea of opportunity and just focus in on the problem we're solving, which is a 1-4-5-4-1 progression in the key of A, just with triads. So again, I showed you all those triads. What we're going to do is just look at one set of triads. And major triads, just as a refresher, are the root, third, and fifth of a scale. So here's our A chord. This first triad we're going to look at is just A. So on that same set of strings, root, 3, 5. If you think about it mathematically, we're looking at a 3-note chord on a set of 3 strings. That is going to have 3 different inversions. This one starts on the root as the lowest note. There's going to be the one that starts on the third as the lowest note, and then eventually the fifth as the lowest note. Let's just take a look at those here. Same set of strings, root as the lowest note. If you want that third as the lowest note, just go up a third, which is 2 whole steps. There's our first inversion A chord, third on the bottom. For those fans of the Cage system, you should sort of see this as part of the C chord or the D shape. And then for the fifth on the bottom, that second inversion, just take your third up a step and a half. And there's our A chord there, our second inversion A chord, which should look very, very familiar. So here are our 3 A chords. Root position, first inversion, second inversion. Those are the only 3 chords we're going to use through this entire exercise. Now let's get back to our chord progression, which is A, D, E, D, A. Just using one voicing of the chord, we could do the entire progression with just this root position triad. Here's our A, up a fourth, there's D, this is on the 12th fret. going from 4 to 5 is just a whole step. So here it is. Here's the whole progression using this root position triad. Using the first inversion triad, this is our A chord. Here's our D chord. Now that's up a fourth, but up a fourth here is getting a little high, so we're going to take it down an octave. A, D, up a whole step is E. The last one is our second inversion chord. Here it is as an A, pretty recognizable. 7th fret is a D, 9th fret is an E. So we've got these progressions all using those triads. But as you can see, this is what's called parallel voice leading. Each one of the notes in this chord has to move up the exact same amount of tones to get to the next chord. That's parallel voice leading. We want to use something a little more consistent and sort of a little more convenient and say, what is the closest chord to this A chord? We're going to start here, for example. And this is from our sort of Van Halen example, the Crazy Train example. Here's our A. Here's the D. And then D up a whole step, of course, is E. Right? A, D, E, D, A. There's our chord progression right there. But this one only uses 2 inversions, right? It's got this one. But it's worth exploring. Like, let's take our next A chord. So here's A, D, E, D, A. Let's do it up here. A, D, E, D, A. So there's an example using 2 inversions. Now what I want to do is take it a step further, and this is where the real gold comes in, and use the third inversion. And the way we're going to do that is map out an ascending line where the second time we come to the D chord, so it's A, D, E. Going back to the D chord, I'm going to go up an inversion, D, and then resolve to the higher inversion of the A chord. So that looks like this. A, now we're set up to do that same thing here on the next inversion. So it's A, D, E, D, A, A, D, E, D, A. So here's that whole progression laid out. So now you've used this chord progression and the triads to map out this beautiful ascending line that's using great voice leading, and it's got you some new capability around using triads inside of a chord progression. You can use these to start looking at phrasing a solo. You can use these to create a guitar part that sort of stays out of the way of the keyboard player or the other guitar player who might be playing bar chords. You can use it to build tension on a single progression as you ascend, and get higher in pitch. You can do a lot of different variations of this. For example, if your constraint was, I'm always going to descend, I'm always going to go lower in pitch, you could start up here at this A, D, E, D, A, D, E, D, A. So there's all kinds of things you can do with this, and these types of exercises get you real familiarity with triads and real capability around putting them on the guitar. Clearly what you want to do is take this around the circle of fifths, for example. Look at the same progression and the same triads on different sets of string. The sky's the limit here, really. Your desire to explore the neck and your curiosity are the only limiting factors. Okay, so there it is. A nice little exercise that gets you familiar with triads, even just on a single string set, and allows you to start using them to voice lead and get some more sophisticated guitar parts under your fingers, even under a simple chord progression like that. This type of exercise is for the curious guitar player. You want to definitely take these things and expand on them. Take it through the circle of fifths, like I was just mentioning. Use different chord progressions, throw some minor chords in there. Really test yourself out and explore the fretboard. I've tabbed all this stuff out, so it's all on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description below. If you want to go there and grab that stuff and really sort of study it, it's all there for you. As always, it's up to you to expand on this. You know, when I learned these types of things, it always set me on a little journey to get me to a new place. I'm hopeful that this exercise works like that for you. And I'll see you next time.